Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Woodstock City Council's Revenue Budget Meeting chairing, February 25th, 2025. See, that's what I get for reading. This special meeting of Woodstock City Council has been called for the purpose of consideration of the 2025 revenue budget. The meeting is for information and discussion purposes only. No action will be taken as the revenue budget approval is scheduled for the regular meeting of council on March 20th, 2025. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording of this meeting will be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the agendas, meetings, and minutes page of the city's website. This is a hybrid meeting held in person here in council chambers and electronically in accordance with section 238, subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act and section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock Procedure Bylaw. But we do not have anyone attending virtually this evening. For those watching at home, we are going to be discussing human resources, economic development, downtown development, small business center, physician, recruitment, engineering department with building, bylaw, parking, transit, and paratransit. We're going to be talking fire, administrative services, marketing, communications, CAO, and planning departments tonight. And with that, are there any disclosures of conflict of interest? Seeing none, then we're going to jump right into things. And I'll ask Ms. Lesky to come forward for human resources. And you're going to find this on pages 90 and 91. We're going to follow along like we've done in years past. We'll go through. I would ask council if there's a question to be specific, ask of the item number and what page, so that everybody can follow along. And with that, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Your Worship, members council. My name is Meg Daleski, and I'm here to present the Human Resources 2025 revenue budget. So I'd like to start off by highlighting what is municipal human resources. So in the municipal workplace, HR plays a crucial role in managing the workforce, ensuring compliance with employment laws, legislation, and fostering a productive, engaged, and inclusive work environment. Key responsibilities within the department encompass a wide range of critical functions. In terms of labor relations, HR manages union negotiations, oversees collective agreements, handles grievance, mediations, and arbitrations, and conducts workplace investigations. Talent acquisition and retention remains a top priority, involving not only the recruitment and onboarding of new staff, but also the development strategies to ensure their long-term retention, which is crucial in this labor market. Additionally, the department administers compensation and benefits programs in accordance with the Pay Equity Act, ensuring that these align with municipal policies, fiscal constraints, and any other legislation. Fostering employee relations and engagement is crucial. HR supports positive workplace culture, conflict resolution, and ensures employees are treated fairly and consistently among the groups. Organizational development is facilitated through leadership development initiatives, training programs, and succession planning, complemented by a robust performance management system. Furthermore, policy development and compliance is a central task to ensuring that municipal policies conform to employment legislation, human rights standards, Municipal Act, the Occupational Health and Safety Regulations. Health and safety wellness programs are meticulously managed to include workplace safety, mental health initiatives, and disability management, reflecting the department's commitment to employee well-being. In short, HR in the municipal setting acts as a trusted advisor and strategic partner, balancing the operational needs of the organization with the employee well-being while maintaining adherence to public sector regulations. I'm going to highlight a few key items from 2024. So Human Resources Department recently navigated a period of notable transition marked by significant staff turnover. To manage this change effectively, an interim director was appointed to steer the department through this transitional phase and oversee the recruitment process for a new director. During this period, the team also achieved some key milestones, including the ratification of both inside and outside CUPE collective agreements, underscoring the department's commitment to maintaining strong labor relations and ensuring fair labor practices. Additionally, in alignment with promoting safe and efficient work environment, the department implemented new initiatives such as a de-escalation procedure launched in November, designed to equip staff with strategies to manage workplace tensions constructively. Furthermore, equipment noise level testing was carried out to adhere to health and safety standards, exemplifying the ongoing dedication to fostering a healthy and compliant workplace for all employees. I'd like to highlight some key items for 2025 coming up. We're still working on a complete list, but this gives you an idea of what we'll be focusing on. So the department is currently engaged in significant collective bargaining activities with the Woodstock Fire Association and assisting the Woodstock Public Library, both of which are progressing at this point. Concurrently, a comprehensive HR policy review is underway to ensure the policies align with current standards and organizational needs. In terms of corporate training, there is a focus on enhancing the prevention of workplace violence and harassment policy and programs specifically tailored for supervisors, with supplementary training available for staff later in the year. The department is also working to broaden the scope of online virtual training opportunities to increase accessibility and participation. On the wellness, health, and safety front, HR is leading the development of a detailed departmental and facility safety plans, accompanied by relevant health and safety training. There is a pronounced emphasis on wellness-driven communication and resources designed to support employees' mental, psychological, and physical health, underscoring the department's commitment to a holistic approach to workplace wellness. Now I'd like to get into a little bit of detail on what are some of the budget drivers for our 2025 budget. So Human Resources Department includes several critical components essential for strategic HR management and organizational goals. Training and development expenses are allocated for both internal and external programs to enhance employee skills, abilities, and qualifications. Recruitment costs account for advertising, agency fees, background checks, etc. Investments in HR technology focus on a human resource information system, so all of our human resources technology, and other software systems necessary for our efficient operations. The budget also encompasses costs related to employee engagement initiatives, compliance with labor laws, which again is key for our department, legal counsel, and health and safety programs. Each of those elements plays a crucial role in maintaining operational efficiency, regulatory compliance, and fostering a positive organizational culture. Human Resources this year is requesting a new budget addition to base budget for a human resources assistant. The HR assistant would be supporting labor relations, compensation, benefit administration, recruitment, health and safety training, which plays a pivotal role in enhancing workplace efficiency and compliance. They would manage meticulous documentation and communication tasks crucial for labor relations, assisting in processing payroll, compensation data, and assisting with the logistics for recruitment activities from postings to onboarding. Additionally, this position would oversee benefits management. This would be happening through enrollment for new employees, changes, claims processing, and any vendor communication or coordination. There's a need for scheduling, organizing, and maintaining records that are essential for health and safety training, ensuring that all employees meet compliance regulations while contributing to a safe and informed workplace environment. This role will require multitasking across various HR systems with a keen eye for detail and confidentiality. Thank you. Any questions?
Well, thank you very much. Any questions for our Director of Human Resources? Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Through your worship, quick question, I should know this, but I don't. Currently, how many staff are in the human resources department, like with health and safety and HR together?
Through your worship to Councillor's question, there are 6 full-time positions right now within human resources.
Any other questions? Councillor Schanberg.
Yeah, through to Ms. Leskey, in these budget, it suggested $78,070 for a difference in the regular wages section of the budget. Would that be for 6 months or 7 months for a new person? Because by looking at your job description, it doesn't really look like an entry-level position for HR, more of a mid-level person.
Through your worship to the council's question, this, I believe, the salary does include 6 or 7 months of the new positions. Salary, we're budgeting at an HR assistant level, which is, I believe, our level 1 or 2 of the compensation structure.
Thank you. Anyone else? In that case, we'll just go over, there's 2 pages, 90 and 91, and I'll accept questions for either page, 90 or 91. I just remind you to please mention the item number, or the account number, I'm sorry, and the page, please. Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Mayor Anthony. Page 90, mileage, so 0172 is the category. A little bit under budget in 2024, and yet forecasting almost double last year's budget. Are you expecting more out and about?
Through your worship, council's question, excuse me, like I mentioned, we had a significant staff turnover last year. There was, the vacancies were extended, staff were not getting out as much. Of course, also with onboarding new employees, there's a learning curve where maybe they're more in the office learning the job rather than going out. At this point, yes, we would be expecting that the mileage would be on track to, for that increase.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The only change I plan on making this evening is I'm gonna ask Ms. Hans to come forward in physician recruitment first. So of course, if those following along, this is 85 to 86. Ms. Hans, welcome.
Oh, is it on here? I thought someone else was going to. Oh, yeah, I don't. Minimize that. Oh. Size it with the mouse. Sorry about that. So hi there and good evening. I'm Christy Hans. I'm the physician recruiter. I'm going to jump right into the budget for this year. So for 2025, the budget is very similar to last year. It looks like we have a new addition in academic supports. These are the physician scholarships and teaching stipends. These aren't new programs. They were there last year, but they were included under marketing, and this year they've been rolled out into its own category. So it's important to point out in the far right column for this year's budget that almost half of the budget is coming from funded from reserve, so not a new ask for additional funds. I tried to show that with the asterisks there. I'm just leaving that for a second so everyone has a chance to look at it, but that's really all to point out. It's very similar to last year across all categories. So as a community recruiter, most of my leads come from within these 4 areas. So over the next couple of slides, I'm going to focus on how and why we're trying, or I'm trying to increase leads and generate more leads outside of the typical recruitment activities like attending career fairs and advertising. So first, we're going to look at the medical school applicants to the Schulich School of Medicine. This is the class that started last fall and will graduate in 2028. Um, they first looked at all applicants and then focused on those that grew up in Southwestern Ontario. So this is exactly where the applicants from Southwestern Ontario went to high school. As you can see, Woodstock and Oxford is not represented here, unfortunately. So then it's not surprising that when we look at the actual class and who is accepted, again, not Woodstock, not Oxford, because if you don't apply, you don't get accepted. But I did put this in here to show that 22% of that class did come from Southwestern Ontario. Almost 75% of that group came from the Essex and Elgin Middlesex areas. It's probably not surprising given they include the larger cities, Windsor and London. However, there is representation from a lot of the other more rural, smaller communities like Stratford, here in Perth, for example. So in the future, I'd like to see Woodstock and Oxford on here. It is shown on the map because Schulich does recognize Oxford as an academy and one of the rural distributed education sites. But I'd like to see us on the list on the right with some representation in future medical classes coming out of our high schools. So one of the programs that will hopefully help towards this is Discovery Healthcare Camp. So Discovery Camp is, it aims to promote careers in healthcare and medicine amongst our local high school students. It's a partnership with Schulich and Woodstock Hospital. And the city of Woodstock is once again providing bursaries to cover the cost of camp for 5 local high school students that require financial assistance. So I do know it says 2024 up there, but the program is running again in Woodstock this July. We also have the scholarship program. So this is for physicians in training who are originally from the Woodstock and Oxford area. This helps us connect with these individuals and keep in touch with them throughout their training and gives me a chance to promote opportunities for practice in Woodstock. The maximum annual cost of this program is $5,000. Okay, so there's been multiple studies that have shown that in addition to physicians ending up practicing where they grew up, many of them end up practicing where they trained. So this is the next initiative. It's pretty sparse with the details because it's very top level right now. It's in the early stages, but we're hoping to have a core teaching site in Oxford County. The difference with that versus what we do now is that now we will have a medical student maybe come for a maximum of 4 weeks and do a rural elective here. But those students are doing their core teaching at a clinic in London or Stratford or Listowel. So they're spending the bulk of their time there and getting a brief in and out in Woodstock. If we can establish a core teaching site here, that would be for medical students, clerks, those are at the end of their medical school, or residents. Then those trainees would come for, I think it's around 10 or 11 months. So it gives us much more time to integrate them into our medical community, as well as to show them how great it is to live and practice in Woodstock. So proposed start date, I think this is fairly optimistic for 2027 because there is a long list of requirements that Schulich needs to see in place before they can move forward with that. Next, just a quick look at some of the numbers. So this data is the 2023 census data, as well as some Ministry of Health data from last fall. You can see here, this shows the percentage of the population in Woodstock and Oxford that's not enrolled with a family physician. So right around 30%, which is in line with the province as a whole. I do want to point out these numbers will be a bit high because the Ministry of Health data is specifically for those enrolled with a physician. And we do know some members of our community are accessing primary care through the nurse practitioner clinic or through the community health center. So the 14,000 not enrolled in Woodstock is probably high, but I would expect 8 to 10,000 at least to be more realistic. So this is one of the greatest challenges to recruitment here and everywhere. And that is that most new grads are not looking to start or take over a practice, unfortunately. This survey from 2021 showed only 15% of new grads were willing to do so. Unfortunately, now in 2025, I don't think the situation's improved. That number may actually be a bit lower. I heard anecdotally that of the family med residents graduating or finishing their training at Schulich last June, there were 192 of them, and one of them went into comprehensive family practice. So it is a challenge for sure. A few other challenges. I don't want to be too negative, and you've heard me all complain about them before, so I won't read through them all. But I tried to keep this really brief, but as always, I'm happy to answer questions now or later via email or phone. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Hans? Okay, I guess I do have one question. The program you're mentioned there that could start in as early as 2027 realistically. I assume that's through the Woodstock Hospital. They would go there directly through the hospital and not just a doctor's office?
That's right. They would
Yeah.
do different rotations, and that is one of the challenges is we have to make sure they could do all their core. So they have to do rotations in surgery, they have to do rotations in family practice. So we not only have to have space, like they have requirements down to the hospital would have to facilitate a classroom setting as well, right down to the students having locker space and learning spaces within the hospital. But we also have to have housing for them. We also have to have preceptors, so physicians in all of those departments that are willing to take on learners for that amount of time. So it's not a small task in front of them, but there is interest with the hospital as well, and they are supportive.
Excellent. Good, thank you. Anyone else before we get into? Counselor Schattenberg?
I guess my question would be more of a statistical thing as well. Are we seeing a trend to having more and more Ontario students, high school student grads, go to medical school? Like graduate high school and go to medical school, like as far as percentages go, or even seats available in classrooms for them to do so, whether it be at Western, McMaster, or wherever?
I'm not exactly sure on the statistics. My understanding is that the sizes of med school, the classes size has increased. So I would assume some of the more of those spots are going to Ontario students, but I can't say for sure. I know Schulich does really focus on trying, they have their distributed education program, and that's why they look at those types of statistics, because they want to see kids from rural communities getting these opportunities as well.
Anyone who watches newscasts and whatnot, not only sees it as a lack of ER doctors or doctors in general, but also registered nurses to keep some of these ERs open in some of the smaller communities. So kind of goes without saying, but Woodstock's battling with a lot of other medical facilities for qualified personnel.
Yeah, definitely.
Sums it up well. Anyone else? All right, with that then, we'll get into the pages. So right now we are talking about pages 85 and 86. We'll do either page. If council has any questions of an account number. Counselor Leathermore.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your presentation. On page 86, physician recruitment, it cuts it off, but I'm assuming it says forgivable loans. 90,000 was budgeted in 2024, and it looks to be 120,000 in 2025. And I was just wondering if that increase was related to the summer camp experience that you mentioned.
No, sorry, I did show this on the the chart, but I did mean to speak to it, so thank you for bringing it up. So the 90,000, that is a combination of over the last few years, we put $30,000 aside each year into a reserve fund for a future forgivable loan program. So that's why that program hasn't been approved yet. So that's why zero of that 90,000 was spent last year. None of it was given out. It was all all rolled over. So that was everything from 2023 and before was the 90. Last year we added an extra 30,000. So that's where the total of 120 is coming from. That's available for this year. And I don't see the line item, but there was no addition to that this year. So the full 120 is from past years.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Martin?
Thank you. Just to follow up then to that, what would be the strategy? At what point would you utilize the 120,000? I'm assuming it's not for one recruitment. It would be spread out amongst multiple. And is it an application process?
The thought is a forgivable loan program to help with startup costs in the range of $25,000 to $30,000 for a new physician that commits to a 5-year return of service. The details haven't all been finalized, but the thinking is it'd be prorated based on like number of days a week. Like if they're here part-time, it would be half of the full amount. The reason that it hasn't moved forward is because the Municipal Act and languaging around bonusing. In order to do this without worrying about contravening, I'm told that there needs to be an amendment to the community improvement plan. That was put on hold last year because my understanding is it looked like that language was going away and that would be a non-issue or redundant. And so now apparently that's not the case and the amendment is back in motion, but that's why it's been held up.
Yes, thank you. I think that's something we will be discussing here. Anyone else? Seeing none? Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we would ask our Economic Development Director, Magyar, come forward. Yeah, your IT is here.
Yeah, don't be afraid, I'm not gonna talk. That was it.
You're the brains of the operation, aren't you? So those following at home, we will be talking about basically all 84 to 89 directly, but Mr. Magyar is going to do 84 to 85 and 87 separately. So
Correct.
please, go ahead.
Okay, so I think everybody knows me, Development Commissioner, been around for about 38 years now. So talk a little bit about what our department does. So we have basically, there's kind of three main facets of what we do. There's the business retention, which basically is working with the existing companies to ensure that they expand and grow in our community. We typically will try and do company visits. So we've been a little bit lax the last few years over COVID, but our plan this year is to visit about 12 to 14 companies. And it gives us a good opportunity to talk to them about what's happening in their industry, what are the challenges they're facing, what opportunities there are, et cetera. So we actually had a visit with a local company today that neither Brad nor I had actually visited, and they've been operating for 9 years. So it was a great opportunity to kind of understand what they're doing, where they're going, and hopefully we'll see some future growth from them. We're involved with social media, mostly in terms of promoting the community for investment and being investment ready. We put on a number of seminars for businesses that might be a benefit to them. And of course, the CIP, which I won't talk at length about because I must admit Brad's pretty much the expert on that. So if there's any questions, you can probably direct them to him. On the business attraction side, this is the one that gets a lot of profile. We do a number of missions internationally. We go to Japan pretty much every year. So our plan is to go to Japan again this year. We do a number of trade shows and we do a number of conferences. Some of the conferences we do, I mentioned site selectors. So site selectors are the people that we really want to talk to because they're dealing directly with clients, typically on a confidential basis, who are looking for sites in Ontario, Canada, sometimes worldwide. But we do know that when a site selector comes calling, the project's been vetted and there's a very good opportunity that it's actually going to land somewhere and hopefully in Woodstock. So again, some of the key services, last year we had about $30 million in industrial land sales, so a banner year for us. We have the film attraction program, which we continue to work on. Lisa Lama from my office is largely the main go-to person on that. We've had a couple of inquiries this year, so trying to work through that, and hopefully we'll have some positive traction on that. We do sell a number of other industrial properties throughout the city, so I think everybody knows that Brad's also working on the former golf course property on 760 Juliana Drive. So we do know what developers go through. I think originally when we got into that, we thought it would be about a 2-year process to bring it to market, and I think we're pushing 5 now. So anyways, that's just the development process as it is. We were involved in the sale of the former PUC building, and we do a number of small lot sales as well. I won't get into a lot of detail because Carrie will be speaking about downtown development, and Sean McNamara will be speaking about the small business center. I should mention that this year in the budget we have a new ask, so we're hoping to get back to hiring a summer student. We had a summer student, Brad and I were thinking about this, it's probably about 15 years ago, so we're hoping to get back to it again. We have some things that we want to get updated. Our industrial directory needs updating. Part of our plan also is to have the person develop an inventory of people involved in the film business from a film attraction standpoint. So it's a little bit of everything. I think the overall request is roughly a little over $9,000, and we're hoping that might be able to secure upwards of 50% grant towards that. So upcoming projects, challenges, Oxford Connection. So this is the dollars that we get from the County of Oxford for our annual programming. Typically, this is Ontario-based programming, so it's not international. And we're looking at doing something to thank basically past clients, past realtors that we've dealt with. So it's just a way of having a touch point with them and keeping in front of them to let them know that we continue to be open for business. Oxford County Career Fair that we're working with Natalie Surridge. We had a tremendous one last year, and we're hoping to have big numbers again March 2025. We have, I think Natalie had said they've already got over 50 companies who are signed up for that event, so they're looking for various people. In terms of SOMA, we've partnered with London Economic Development Corporation. So the TEVT, we love all these little acronyms. So that's the electric vehicle triangle, and so we try and work internationally to try and attract companies who are in the supply chain for electric vehicles. And of course, last year we went to Germany, to Wolfsburg, which is where Volkswagen's headquarters are, and did a trade show there to talk about companies. Again, because of the investment in St. Thomas, there is a lot of interest in this area. So challenges, lack of service municipally owned industrial lands obviously is a problem. And you'll see in the budget, it has quite an impact because our land sales are expected to go down. The bigger challenge is going to be as we go further out, 2026, 2027, we may not have any industrial land sales to actually bring forward to council. We're looking at some options with the Corlett Farm to develop it so that we can have some land sales, I would say, in advance to help pay for future servicing. So we are looking at some options in that regard. And as I've mentioned on a couple of occasions, we're now relying more on the private sector for sites. And it is a bit of a challenge. We have had some success with Carson 214, not so much success with Broccolini or Melrose investments at this point, but I suspect that will come as they get clients. So partnerships, I talked about Oxford Connection. Again, this is the dollars we get from the County of Oxford, which allows us usually to do 2 to 3 trade shows. It's also going to help pay for our customer appreciation event that we're looking to hold later in the summer. Ontario Food Cluster, Ontario Manufacturing Communities Alliance, typically do 3 to 4 trade shows a year, both of those groups. And those groups typically have 10 to 11 communities that are partners, so much bigger than SOMA. SOMA, of course, is just 6. And Woodstock, of course, is a founding member of SOMA. And because we're in SOMA, we actually get access to Food Cluster and Ontario Manufacturing Communities Alliance. So we get access to all those leads that are generated from those shows. So for us, it's a great opportunity to spread our message further. And as much as I take a lot of ribbing about not being at council, I do some SOMA activities and of course Oxford Connection activities, but you can imagine if I was also doing the 3 to 4 food cluster and 3 to 4 OMCA events, then I really wouldn't be here. But anyways, just a little aside. So in terms of SOMA, it generates about 200 leads a year for Woodstock, provides a significant access to federal funding. So SOMA's been successful every year in terms of getting federal funding for some of our international programming. And because of SOMA, one of the things I'd like to say is that it's not just the leads that it generates, it actually, because it's a bigger group of 6 communities, some other members quite often are doing the show. So Brad and I are still able to be here in the office. And of course, we share on the leads. And as I mentioned, SOMA pays for our OMCA and OFC memberships as well. In terms of budget, I mentioned land sales a little bit. So you'll see that our land sales are way down. This year we're proposing $8 million, and that's basically just because we don't have significant inventory to sell. Trade shows and travel is up about $8,000. Cost-related land sales, which is typically real estate fees, surveys, all those kind of incidental items, is significantly down, again, because their land sales should be down. Our filming location expenses, we've cut that back a little bit, mostly because we've completed a pretty good inventory of available locations, which is now available, and we've cut back our advertising as well. So in terms of land sales, I talked about that a little bit, but you can certainly see in 2024 on both these charts, the $30 million plus the significant acreage, over 70 acres sold. And 2025, you'll see a decline on both those areas. So in terms of where our inquiries come from, I just noticed we have a little spelling error there. But anyways, so basically SOMA generates the vast leads of inquiries and leads for the city of Woodstock. Oxford Connection is next. A lot of those come from our trade shows typically. Industrial Realtors is significant, so that's why we do customer appreciation events, because it's largely real estate oriented. When we do our FAM tour as well, we typically invite industrial realtors because they're the ones bringing our leads to us. And other is basically anything from consultants, site locators, etc. So just gives you a little bit of background. So I'm happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Thank you. Any questions on the presentation before we get into the details? Seeing none? Then we'll get right into it. So we'll look at questions on page 84 and a little bit of 85 under development. Any questions on either page 84 or 85? Seeing none?
Page 87.
Then we'll go to page 87. Welcome questions on page 87. Councillor Schattenberg.
From the mayor through to Mr. Mag, I guess just an overall question. If the city doesn't have any land to sell, do you therefore end up getting fewer prospects? Or are you still receiving phone calls and inquiries about other lands that other developers own because they're thinking of relocating to Woodstock? Is it about the same percentage or quieter because you don't have any land physically to sell, especially at Allier?
Yeah, your worship, through to Councillor Schattenberg, I would say our inquiries this year seem to be trending a little bit lower than is in the past. And a lot of that has to do with kind of the outside chatter, tariffs, and some of those other things. But in terms of inquiries from people who we typically hear from, you see a bit of a change. So right now, I would say we're generally getting more inquiries for people looking for existing space. So not necessarily looking for land to build a building and that sort of thing. So those ones we're happy to help with because we do have developers who have built space on spec. And so we're happy to help them. We do certainly, when we get other leads, if we don't have land that we can accommodate them with, in terms of municipal lands, we'll quite often, turn them over to private sector, developers in the community. And then we have a bit of a strategy. After that, we will also, if there's nothing in Woodstock specifically that will work for the client, then we'll look at, anywhere within Oxford County. And then after that, anything within kind of our Soma region. So for me, I always go Woodstock first because Woodstock's the one that cuts my paycheck. But for us, we're looking at particularly keeping it in Oxford County, also within Soma is still a benefit. If an investment lands there, like we can use the Volkswagen example in St. Thomas, it generates a lot of activity, a lot of interest in the area. But the other thing that happens is there's a lot of employment opportunities that moves back and forth. There's a lot of supply opportunities that move back and forth as well. So anything we can do, obviously Woodstock first, but anything after that that's close is still a benefit to the community. But it's just, you have to kind of look at what the lead is, what they're looking for. And in most cases, we can come up with at least a couple of opportunities for them. I don't want to sound dire and say that because it's all private sector, we're missing out on a lot. It becomes a bit more of a challenge. But there are certainly other opportunities around us as well.
As you know, I spent a few years in real estate before I got on council, and the one thing, as soon as the bulldozers arrived at that Melrose property, the corner of Parkinson and County Road 4, even people were asking me, and I was sort of saying, well, Len Magyar is probably the best person to talk about is whether or not there's any physical things actually happening there as opposed to just moving land around to possibly do some servicing. So that's a good example because that property is not owned by the city versus the LEA farm that was owned by the city.
Yeah, and your worship, if I can just mention further, so if you look at the Melrose type of investment, they're looking at, in our business, what we call the big bombers, so much larger tenants, people who are looking for 250,000. So, which is certainly a bit of a rarity in Woodstock at the moment. We have Carson 214, which builds buildings on spec as well, typically not looking for tenants of that magnitude, typically looking for, I would say with Chris, anywhere from probably sweet spots, probably 50 to 150,000 square feet. So again, you have different developers who have different specialties. So again, you kind of have to look at the inquiry and figure, is this a bigger user that you can turn to Melrose or say a Broccolini, or is this somebody smaller that you can work with Mr. Carson?
Thank you. Any other questions? Last chance on pages 84, 85, and 87. Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, I would ask Ms. Baird come forward. Downtown development.
Not fair.
Need IT? No.
You have to. It's really hard to see the mouse on this screen. Oh, there it is. Maybe it's the height I'm looking at it from.
It's too bright in here today, is it? For the screen?
Thank you. Good evening, your worship and members of council. My name is Carrie Baird, which obviously I'm still learning my own last name. Don't get married in your 40s, it's harder to adapt. So I am the downtown development officer for the city of Woodstock. It's a good thing my husband doesn't watch council. So my key job role is to bring new businesses to downtown, to market downtown Woodstock to potential businesses, coordinate the efforts of the BIA, manage the community improvement plan, and be the first point of contact for streetscape construction. Some of the things that I wanted to highlight in here is that one of the things that's been really exciting about the move to 21 Market is I've had a large increase of people who are purchasing or looking at purchasing buildings or properties in downtown and are able to meet with them before they buy the property, talk about their commercial tenants, talk about the CIP that's available for the program. And then I've now actually had my first person that I've been able to follow through the community improvement plan. So it's really, it's a really fun process to be able to see somebody who was interested in buying a property, have since bought it and are doing the community improvements. I also am still doing some of my more guerrilla marketing of sending postcards to vacant properties, reminding them that we have CIP and reminding them that it would be lovely to have a business in their spot. My priorities for 2025 include advanced marketing and activation initiatives through the BIA. We are going to have to do quite a bit of marketing to mitigate phase 1 and 2 of streetscape. Targeted marketing campaign for business expansion downtown. We still do have quite a bit of vacancy. We are faring better than most downtowns, but we are still do have a high vacancy, especially in some key properties right on our main street. Expand participation with Tourism Oxford to increase the reach of downtown business and activations. We did a really great program with Tourism Oxford where we toured hospitality people from Woodstock, went to multiple restaurants and went to businesses and did a walk along Dundas. We've already scheduled 2 of those because it really was a great for people who sometimes probably don't leave Norwich Avenue, for them to come and see what our downtown has to offer. I reminded a large portion of my job is to support the BIA. So I like to remind you of their vision because it's my vision as well. And directive is their directive. We have had some great successes towards the end of 2024 that we have a new shared service agreement. We have completed a strategic plan for 2025. We've completed a procedural bylaw revision. We've moved to a co-chair system. We've had very successful and well-attended downtown halls, and we've expanded events and marketing, such as the synthetic ice rink that you can see in Museum Square that will be there until April. So you'll be able to spring skate, which is quite exciting. And we're also going to have an old school dance party on March 14th and a kids dance party on the Wednesday from 1 to 4. And I said it has old school SCHOOL because I'm not allowed to do SKOOL. So getting to the budget part of it, one thing I wanted to highlight is that meetings and luncheons was quite high. I'm fortunate to be a director on the board for the Ontario BIA Association, which is the provincial body for BIAs. We hosted a one of the board meetings and their strategic planning session. Both were really, really well received. They loved being here. And they spent over $3,000 each 2 nights that they were here, between drinks, food, hotels, and shopping, and especially people who are come from more northern BIAs. She's very good at shopping. So she did very well there. The other one is the advertising and events. I'm asking for a significant increase. That is really to be able to do, there's some really fun things coming down of some uses for Museum Square that would be partnering with some of the larger activities that happen outside of the downtown that they want to partner with downtown that we would need some money for. There's also the fact of the construction mitigation. We were going to need to remind people that we are here. We're going to need signage for the whole road, and we're going to really need to make sure that people understand our businesses are open and they're here for them. And I believe that is my last slide. And I will go back to that slide if there's questions. Thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Baird? Counselor Schanberg?
Are the Thursday lunch hour concerts going to continue in 2025? And if so, how are they funded?
Through your worship to the councilor's question, they are funded through my event budget. Half of the cost, though, I do receive a grant through the Musician Performance Trust, which is in New York, because we use union musicians. As long as the entire group is a union musician, they pay at least half. Last summer, there was some dates that we ended up receiving 100% funding. It doesn't show on my revenue because it goes to, unfortunately, the grant goes to the BIA budget, which is fine.
was a question I was gonna ask, so good question. I was curious on that. Anyone else? Seeing none? So page 85, you'll see the downtown development section. Any questions? On page 85. Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. McNamara, Small Business Center.
We don't have to close anything.
No, even from up here, it's hard to see.
There you go.
Perfect, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I've reached a point in my life where distance-wise, I can see the screen. Up close, I need cheaters. So I'm going to be wearing a hybrid Ben Franklin look this evening to address the program. So anyways, I am Sean McNamara, manager of the Small Business Center. We, as you all know, because you're all very familiar faces to the Small Business Center, we are here to help and serve not just residents of Woodstock, but Oxford County as a whole. We're here to coach, mentor new businesses, expanding businesses, people who have general inquiries, and I'm very proud to be able to present our budget for the 2025 year. To give you some oversight, there's a lot of information on this slide, so I will go slow and I will try and explain it, but ending the year December 31st, we engaged 744 unique clients. Some of those were just inquiries. Some of those were people who were circling back. Again, we're in uncertain times. And again, even as far back as the fall, we had people inquire and we don't hear from them. Subsequent to that, of those 744, 353 ended up getting further support. So we engaged them further than that initial engagement. And at the end of the year, we had helped 47 actual business startups or business expansions. We conducted 2014 unique repeat in-person or remote meetings, consultations, or engagements, and any client interaction up to 30 minutes is considered a single engagement. So if we met with somebody for 2 hours, that would be considered 4 engagements. That's how we track it. Broken down by municipality, 44% of our client base came in 2024 from the city of Woodstock, and it's cascading down from that point. Other would have been inquiries from outside of Oxford County. A further demographic breakdown of our clients, 66% are female, 34 are male. That's a slight shift. We've reduced our female number and increased our male number slightly. The average age is approximately 36, and approximately 14% of our clients are new to Canada, Ontario, or Oxford County. While we continue to meet with people over the phone and via Zoom, since moving over to the Market Building, we've enjoyed a return to in-person and walk-in consultations, and approximately 30% of our in-office meetings or our consultation meetings are actually in person now. So we're happy to have that face-to-face walk-in availability that we didn't have for the period of time that we were across the street. One of our big draws, probably the biggest draw that we have, is our grant programs. Our Starter Company Plus grant program is one that gets inquired on multiple times a day. It's an Ontario government program that provides adults 18 plus with the resources and knowledge that they need to start and grow their own business. It offers training, skill development, advice and mentorship from local business leaders and industry professionals. And in 2024, we gave away 13 grants at $5,000 apiece for a grand total of $65,000. Some of the grants were Evolution Electronics here in Woodstock, D&B Construction in Tillsonburg, Red Dragon Dairy in Salford, and Moon Lake Ritual in Woodstock as well. Just a sampling of the 13. We also have a summer grant for students called Summer Company. Again, For students between the ages of 15 and 29, they need to be returning back to school. The idea being that they start their businesses in May, right through until July, and that their businesses need to be wrapped up by Labor Day. They get initially $1,500 of seed money, and upon successful completion of the program, they get $1,500, the funding totaling $3,000. And last summer, we had 4 very worthwhile and worthy individuals participate in the summer company program with a combined gross annual revenue of $15,200. One of our marquee events that we hold every single year is called Bridges to Better Business, and we changed things up in 2024. We went from having keynote speakers, lunchtime event, a cost associated with it, to changing it to Bridges to Better Business Networking with Purpose. And we held it at the Art Gallery on October the 23rd. The Networking with Purpose, basically, if we can encapsulate it, it's speed dating for businesses. So basically, if we have, and I believe we had in excess of 80 people attend, the hope is that everyone in attendance will end up speaking to one another, and you will have left having spoken to 79 other people. It was an interesting challenge. We took a lot of notes. There's a lot of takeaway from the event, which we deemed to be a success. We held it at the Art Gallery. One of the things that we hadn't really thought through, I hadn't really thought through, was that we had refreshments. And when you're dealing with the Art Gallery, there are only certain areas that fresh refreshments are in fact allowed. So we had a lot of people confined to very small spaces trying to eat and drink. And also the thing that we hadn't considered is the acoustics. An art gallery is a place of quiet introspection, not networking and talking over each other. So moving forward, we're going to think it out a little bit better. We're going to try and execute a little bit differently in 2025. It was very well received. I think it is very, very popular. I think we need smaller breakout groups, and we need more rooms where the sound isn't overbearing. And a lot of people left being grateful for the event, but definitely overstimulated. So that is what our goal is moving forward for Bridges 2025. One of the things that is growing in leaps and bounds, and that's largely due in part to Brenda Tate, my coworker, is our community engagement and our SBC Live weekly community outreach program. We expand our relationships with all Oxford County small businesses. And one of the things that we realize is that while we are centrally located, there are a lot of small business owners that are out there. And as a small business owner, you are sometimes your only employee. You can't get up and leave and come to us. Now, again, we have phone and Zoom consultations, which are great, but it's not very conducive to having a conversation with somebody and having to go and ring somebody through at the till or deal with the client that's coming in the door. So for Brenda to go out and meet people where they exist, where their businesses are, is absolutely invaluable, and it continues to pay dividends. It takes a bit of time as well. You walk in and you're like, I'm a community service here to help you. There's no strings attached. Sure, there's not. So you have to go back. You have to earn their trust. You have to see them in their environment. So Brenda has gone back 1 to 2 days a week, every week of the year, and she works with our community partners as well to introduce other aspects of services, of benefits that are available free to the business owners in Woodstock. And in 2024, she met with, visited, or re-engaged 337 businesses. Our motto, because being a small business owner is incredibly isolating at times, is you are not alone. Make us your first call. We're here to help you. That's important. I've mentioned our community partners. We have come from a place where we, in the past, were very isolated. We created a bit of an island of ourselves, and we've broken that down. And now we are heavily, heavily engaged with all of our community partners, and we're doing great things. And I'll talk about those in a minute. The Small Business Center is a proud member of the Oxford County Business and Economic Development Community, and we work closely with all 5 municipal chambers of commerce, the 4 Oxford County Business Improvement Associations, Community Futures, Rural Oxford Economic Development, Community Employment, Tourism Oxford, and Fanshawe College. And when I say we work with them, sometimes, again, it's one of those things where we feel like we're all working under the same roof. Certainly from Brenda's standpoint, I know she knows all of the people at all of these organizations very, very well, and they don't hesitate to reach out to us, which again is a massive change from where we were, say, 2 or 3 years ago. I do want to say quickly, as a point of interest, which would be some quick math when you're looking at the budget pages, our move to 21 Market Street West has been phenomenal. It's been really great. And again, it's proven itself in the 30% in-person consultations, the ability to work collaboratively with everyone within the office. But simply from a dollars and cents standpoint, our move to 21 Market Street has resulted in our budget being reduced by $28,300. Again, that's beneficial. We're not having to worry about heat, hydro, all of the things that we were as a standalone industry or a standalone entity. So again, not only has it paid dividends and benefits for us and the job that we do, but also from a fiscal standpoint, it's been greatly beneficial to the city as well. Innovations for 2025. Again, as mentioned, our engagement with our community partner agencies has grown exponentially, and we have several exciting joint collaborations planned. Podcasts, job fairs, business boot camps, the outdoor farm show. We could do a chamber event twice a week, every week if we wanted to. Engagement with our high schools, engagement with our community colleges, as well as ongoing development of our legacy succession support program with the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. That's something that I referenced last year. Our office was tapped by the Deputy Minister on one of her visits to help develop a business succession support program. Again, I used to be a legacy business owner. My experience and my, again, experience, for lack of a better description, has been somewhat beneficial in helping some of our legacy businesses throughout the county in trying to figure out, do I sell my business, shutter it and walk away? Or do I actually find somebody who might be willing to take it over, whether it's an existing staff member or a third party? Again, legacy businesses are not just one and done. They mean a lot to the owners and they mean a lot to the community. So we try to build a succession support program, and we're working directly with the ministry. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, all of our interaction with the province currently is suspended because they are in election protocol. One of the other things that we are doing, which is very exciting, so if any of you want to get up early and come tomorrow, we are working directly with the Woodstock Chamber, the Woodstock City Police, Workplace Safety and Prevention Services, Kerry, for an initiative called the Retail Sales and Safety Forum. It's open to everyone, and it's tomorrow here across the street at Theatre Woodstock. Its purpose is for downtown retailers from across the county, from Woodstock as well, to come and learn about loss prevention strategies, managing intoxicated individuals, conflict resolution, de-escalation techniques, as well as wanting to make sure that we're connecting them with local human service agencies who are also going to be there. So again, it's an added element, but it's something that working in collaboration with all of these different agencies serve a greater purpose. And again, referencing Bridges to Better Business for the last time, in addition to our main October event, we do plan on holding 4 additional regional smaller events. Again, understanding that we need to be out in the community, we need to be engaging. So our hope is to have one in Norwich, who has really grown in leaps and bounds so far as our office is concerned, Tillsonburg, Tavistock, and Ingersoll as well. With that, I will open it up to questions.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. McNamara, on the presentation itself? Seeing none, then on pages 88 and 89, since 89 is a short page, we'll do both pages. Any questions on any of those items or account numbers? Guess you explained everything well in your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So next up, we will get into engineering.
Our,
Mr. DeHaan.
our HR department may want to increase the vision care program funding.
Is following along. This is going to be starting off in pages 31, but we will be discussing pages 25 to 50 roughly.
Interdepartmental
Yes,
cooperation at its best.
yes.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. This evening, I'll be presenting the 2025 revenue budget for the Office of the City Engineer, which is made up of the Building Department, 0301, the Engineering Department, 0303, Bylaw, 0304, Parking, 0307, Transit, 0709, and Paratransit, 0710. For the Building Department, 2024 year in review, we had 4 building inspectors, although one was on mat leave, 2 building technicians, a deputy CPO, and I won't say intentionally, I didn't put, I forgot to put the CBO's position also. We have a construction value of 225 million in 2023 versus, sorry, we had 225 million in 2024 versus 280 million in 2023, but you probably all remember that from the annual building report that came to council a couple weeks ago. We worked with the province to get credit for the correct number of building permits for the Building Faster Fund. That was, got to thank our staff they put in a lot of work on that one. The objective for 2025 is we'd like to do an internal building permit review for our fees. The building department is self-funded, and we want to take a look and see if we are still charging the correct amount to remain self-funded, as well as in compared to other municipalities. Notable changes in the budget for the building department is an increase in wages due to the new collective agreement. You probably hear that story from all the departments. A decrease in part-time we're cutting down from 2 students down to 1, and an increase in consulting fees for contract inspections to cover vacancies such as for mat leaves, vacations, sick time, etc. Excuse me. Looking at the specific numbers for revenue for permits for the building department, we're budgeting the same as we did last year, which is basically $1 million in revenue. So that's a 0 change. And then the others would be the contributions from reserve in order to make us a net zero. We're going from 198,000 to 282, which is an increase of 42.8%. Expenditures, we're increasing 7.1% from 1198 to 1282. And again, everything nets out to be 0 since we are a self-funded department by provincial law. The addition to base budget that we're asking for, and I'm putting it in this section. However, I'm going to take a note that it is not eligible to be net 0 funded. So this position, if approved, will probably end up being in another department, either the 0205 or the engineering department. But the position is facilities manager position, and which is basically dealing with the city's buildings. So that's kind of why I'm presenting it here. The position would basically oversee the regular and long-term maintenance of all city facilities. It would oversee capital maintenance projects for the existing facilities, as well as oversee a custodial pool to service City Hall, James Street Museum, and the Art Gallery. And we're hoping that this position would provide efficiencies of contracts, would maintain the same levels of service at all facilities, and improve reliability of custodial staff, as well as creating one point of contact for all buildings and so that all buildings are maintained to the same level. It's also going to help with asset management in terms of we'll have one person on the ground all the time who's aware of the condition and is trained to look so that we're able to properly manage our assets. So we'll be able to identify projects that are 5-10 years down the road instead of being a knee-jerk reaction, which we have been. If approved, the annual cost would be 131, including benefits. And in the first year, obviously, we'd need about $3,000 more for IT costs. Moving on to engineering, or the 03003 accounts. 2024 year in review, we completed all 6 road reconstruction projects, which were in our capital plan. We hired a senior survey technician, and we had council endorse the 2024 asset management plan, which was required by the province. And then brought, as Lynn and Brad had mentioned, brought the LA farm online, which they immediately proceeded to sell. 2025 objectives, we have to complete another update to the asset management plan, which is due July 1st of this year. Our capital budget, core infrastructure, approved in the capital plan this year is 8.7 million, with an additional 8.8 million of sanitary and water works that we'll be doing for the county. And we're hoping to begin construction of the first phases of the Northeast Industrial Park, otherwise known as the Corlett Farm. And then hoping to very soon to bring a completed transportation master plan to council for consideration. Notable changes in the engineering budget, increase in overhead required for county capital. This is due to the new agreement we had approved with the county a year or two ago now, I guess. So basically, this amount is in direct relationship to the capital work that's approved. There's also an increase in overtime due to the anticipated heavy construction year, and an increase in on-call costs due to the new collective agreement. And you'll notice that we're also planning on doing a aerial mapping of the whole city. We need to update it because it hasn't been done in the last 5 years. Looking at the numbers, revenue for engineering, 2024, we had a budget of 752,000. This year, we're looking at revenue of 1172, which is an increase of 56%. Again, that's mostly tied to all the water and sewer work that we're doing for the county, because they're now directly paying us for doing that work for them. Expenditure side of things, engineering, 2024 budget was 2371. We're increasing that to 2708, or 14.2%. Streetlights and traffic signals going from 809 to 863, or up 54,000. And then other miscellaneous going up 1,000. Net costs for the engineering department is basically actually a decrease from last year of going down 1.1%. Additions to base budget that engineering is asking for, we're asking for an additional 400,000 to the road reconstruction reserve, which will be used to eliminate $400,000 in debt each year to fund the road program in 2025. Costs have been going up, and therefore we need to increase our road reserves also to match instead of having to finance through debt all the time. The other ask from the engineering department is another addition to base budget, and this is a one-time contribution of 860,000 to the road reconstruction to cover the additional road reconstruction projects that council added to the construction capital budget. Again, this financing it this way means that would not have to be financed through debt, but can be financed through a reserve account. Bylaw, 2024, we hired a new manager of bylaw, Stephen Miller. He's sitting back there. If you haven't had a chance to meet him yet. One of the first things Steve did this year was he updated the foul bylaw, and we have been working on increasing parking enforcement with over 3,500 tickets written in 2024 compared to 2,800 in 2023. 2025 objectives, we want to complete a vacant building enforcement blitz to improve compliance to the new bylaw that was passed last year. We want to update the sign bylaw, property standards bylaws, and lot maintenance bylaws, as well as perform municipal prosecutions with city staff instead of contracting out. Steve, nicely enough, is actually qualified to do that, so we can have Steve perform those fees for us instead of getting a lawyer to do that for us. And then, in addition to the vacant building enforcement blitz, we're bylaws planning on doing the long grass and weeds enforcement also. Notable changes in the bylaw budget, the base budget. Membership up is $1,300 to allow staff to do those prosecutions that I just mentioned instead of contracting it out. There's an increase in new equipment to allow for the purchase of portable radios for the staff. And again, full-time wages are up to reflect the whole year of a bylaw manager, as well as the changes to the collective agreement. Looking at the numbers, bylaw does not have a lot of revenue. We're projecting a revenue of $1,000, same as last year, no change. Expenditures are going up 15.7% basically though, from 587 to 680. And again, basically that's mostly due to full-time wages. Additions to base budget for the bylaw department is the implementation of administrative monetary penalties for parking. AMPs, as they're otherwise known, would allow the city to assess a fine, avoiding the court system. Unpaid fines can be mailed in and be added to the tax roll. This would speed up. This would allow bylaw officers basically to take pictures of infractions of parked cars or cars that are illegally parked. And instead of having to put a ticket on the window, we can just mail the ticket in, and the ticket actually goes to the car owner. You don't necessarily have to prove that it was the person in the car. We're anticipating 10 to 20% increase in revenue. I think that probably leans more to 20% because it's going to be a lot faster process. Being able to whip through a school zone and take pictures of all the illegal cars in the area. Again, the main reason we want to do this is for school zone enforcement. The operational cost actually is zero, but there is some capital costs, basically of $70,000 for software and tablets. Moving on to parking, notable changes in the budget. Full-time wages, again, up to reflect the addition of Steve to the staff, as well as collective agreement changes. And then we also removed the walkway property expenses, which you'll see in the budget. We moved to those to the orphan building accounts, or 0205 accounts. The numbers for parking, we're keeping revenue the same at 137, and administrative costs going from 101 to 123 are up 22.5%. Operations and expenses basically just going up 1%, or an additional, or excuse me. I think I dropped a negative sign there. Actually going down 1%. Anyway, but the total expenditures for parking are going from 304 to 324, or up 6.5%, making the net go from 167 to 187, or an increase of 11.9%. Transit department, 2024, a record high ridership. We've been going up, I think, the last probably 3 or 4 years now, at least. Last year we hit 664,000 rides on conventional transit. We also managed to extend routes 1 and 4 to better service some outlying areas. In 2025, we're commencing a transit study to look at the improved routes and recommendations for future growth. That we're going to complete. We should be putting out for tender shortly the automatic wash bay project, which will do a retro on our existing manual wash bay to convert it into an automatic. And then Transit's going to do an internal department update of their safety plan. Notable changes in the budget for transit are an increase in advertising due to increases in revenues. Full-time wages are up due to, again, the new collective agreement wages, new shift language, conversion of part-time to full-time drivers, as well as adding some Saturday hours. There was also a new account that was added, environmental compliance, to pay for our ongoing groundwater cleanup problem that we've had at the bus barn. We've had that project for a number of years. It originally started as a capital project, and we hit that groundwater, so the project came to a halt. And for the last probably 7 or 8 years, we've been using that capital project to pay for this cleanup, but that capital count finally got whittled down to 0 finally last year. And so now we have to add it to the revenue budget. So looking at the numbers for transit and revenue fares, modest increase from 779,000 to 800,000. And then miscellaneous revenues going from 720 to 875. Expenditures, operations going from 3257 to 3587, or an increase of 10%. Administrative costs going from 1053 to 1415, or up 34%. Net costs for conventional transit going from 2811 to 3319, or an increase of 18.1%. Paratransit, very quickly, nothing much changed last year. We're not really planning on making any changes next year. So the budget looks very similar. Revenue 45,000, same as last year. Operations, slight increase due to our contracted services going from 817 to 820, and administrative actually dropping down a little bit from 31 to 30. So the net costs there going from 803 to 805, or basically a 0.2% change. And that's all I have.
That's all.
That's it.
Well, thank you very much. Any questions of council? Councillor Martin?
I had a couple of questions, but I'll go one at a time and you can bounce around and see if others. You talked about the facilities manager position. Does that include buildings like the art gallery, the museum, the library?
Your worship, through the council, that would include all city facilities,
All
yes.
city
We're
facilities?
like right now, so, some facilities have whoever's on site being the main person, that can be completely other bailiwick, right? You know, so they don't know what to look for, or, you know, and then, so we'd have one person doing that, as well as being able to then set up service contracts with one plumber, one heating company, you know, that kind of thing. So we have consistency. That way they'd also do the annual checks on the HVAC systems and all that other stuff.
And get into more preventative than reactive?
Yeah.
So is this a separate position than the Woodstock Public Library facility manager position? I know we're gonna hear their budget on March 6th, so I just, these are two
Through the
separate
council,
positions.
yeah, in my understanding it is, yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? On the presentation, we'll get into page by page shortly. Councillor Martin?
You mentioned the aerial mapping.
Mhm.
Is that the entire city or just new sections of the city to add to the current inventory of mapping?
Your worship, through the council, no, we've done little sections when we've annexed land in, but this will be a complete redo of the whole city, just to cover areas that have been redeveloped. And to be honest with you, it's nice doing it that way because technology gets better and better. And every time we do it, we can get more and more accuracy on the contours and be able to drill in better.
So is that what feeds into the Glimmer GIS system?
Correct.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have a couple of questions, but we'll wait till we get into those pages. So that, then we'll cover first page 31. Seeing no questions on page 31, I'll go to page 31 to 33 then, very short amount on page 33. Any questions on page 31, 32, and 33? Seeing none, oh, sorry, Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. I'll just pass this question through to Mr. Dahan regarding the electricity, which is 303-79101-0351 on page 32. There's quite an increase in the electricity. Is that just due to growth?
Your worship, through the council, due to growth and increasing rates.
Any other questions before I move along? Seeing none, we'll go to building, which is page 25 and 26. Just a short bit on page 26 if you turn the page, so we'll include them both. Again, pages 25 and 26. Under building, Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Through your worship to Mr. Dahan, just hit my glasses off the mic. It's on page 25, 0383 building consulting fees. I see that we had budgeted 30, but it was quite a bit more at 96,000. Just curious what that would entail, the consulting fees, and why there was that increase.
Yeah, good question. Your worship, through the councillor, that actually is the firm that we hire to do our inspections for us when we're short-staffed. So that specifically there was the increase there was higher than budgeted due to the maternity leave.
Thank you. That was one of my questions. That item. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. This might be more of a question for finance. I noticed it on a couple of different budgets. Sick pay, stat pay, floating holiday pay, other wages. We budgeted 0, but we had costs, but we're still budgeting 0 for 2025. Is that because of new positions or is that?
Your worship, through the councilor's question, it's the way that the wages are broken out through our e-time system. So if we have just strictly salaried people, it would all roll up into 101. But as soon as there's part-time, then it breaks it all out, and the inside and inside unit as well are included in there. So you have to add all of the accounts together to get up to the budget.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Again, page 25 and 26. Before we move along. Seeing none, then we'll move along to bylaw, pages 34 and 35. Again, page 35 is short, so we'll do them both. Page 34 and 35 for bylaw. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, just a quick question about memberships, 0313 on page 34, 0313, yeah. Budgeted last year for 400 going up to 1,700. Is that because memberships are per person or they're new associations or new?
Your worship, through the councillor, no, that is the additional 1,300 there is for that one membership so that we can perform the going to court with our own staff instead of contracting it out. We need to be a member of something.
Thanks for the level of detail there.
Look at that, Steve.
Yeah, he's standing or sitting right there. There you go. Law Society of Ontario. So my other, my other question is in this section on page 35, on the total revenues where we're, equaling out what we did last year. One of the slides you had over 3,500 tickets given versus 2,800 tickets given before, but there's no revenue increase. Should there not be a slight revenue increase there? Is it separated out?
Yeah.
Just got told it's in parking.
Yeah.
To my side, so that is correct. Yeah. Thank you. So any other questions for bylaw under page 34 and 35? Moving along to parking then. Pages 44 and 45. I remember they were side by side, yes. So parking, page 44 and 45. Satan. Counselor Shanberg.
Yeah, it's not a large number. I'm just wondering if Mr. DeHaan can tell us why the amount of revenue coming from the Econo Lodge is going down.
We're near the end of the contract, is that correct? No?
Your worship, through the council's question, it's split between the, parking permits and the interest, and it's the same amount each year. It's just a different allocation as the amortization schedule is, being reduced.
Yeah, I found it on page 44. Anything else before we move along? On parking? Seeing none, we'll go to transit. Transit is on pages 46 to 49, but I'm gonna go page by page here. Page 46. Any questions on page 46 for transit? Counselor Shanberg.
Yeah, I think it's terrific when you announce that the highest fare total ever was set for 2024. Was there any thought or any calculation between yourself and Mr. Springstead to kind of thought to start the transit earlier, say at 5 a.m. for those that work at 6 a.m. or anything along that lines of expansion of services anywhere?
Your worship, through the counselor, we did not look at that this year. We did, I don't remember the numbers. I know we looked at it last year when we presented that to council. We weren't presenting that change this year, so we didn't revisit the issue.
Okay. Any questions on page 46 and 47 now? Again, under transit. All right, I'm gonna flip the page to include pages 48 and 49. So any questions on transit at all? Pages 46 to 49. Just one question, revenue is forecasted to be lower for 2025, so page 49. Oh no, that's an increase.
Your worship, through counselor,
Yeah.
we're going from basically 1.5 in revenue to 1.67.
Yeah, sorry, my mistake. And looked at it quickly. Saw the brackets. I was thinking negative. All right, moving along from transit, if nobody has any other questions, we'll go to paratransit on the very next page, page 50. No questions on paratransit? Counselor Shanberg.
Don't know if you know the answer to this question off the top of your head, Mr. DeHaan, but the Voyago contract, is that year by year by year, or is that like a 3-year term, 4-year term?
Your worship, through the counselor, it was originally a 5-year contract. At the end of it, a couple of years ago, we renegotiated another 5-year extension.
Seeing no more questions, that is all for this evening for engineering.
Thank you.
Last chance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the fire department, and I would invite Chief Slager. Welcome.
Thank you.
For those at home, of course, this is page 51 and 52 to follow along.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, members of councils. This year's 2025 revenue budget presentation, we'll launch off with a kind of brief recap of what we've done in 2024. I am going to kind of keep it very brief as an overview. We do plan on providing a full annual report as to our activities at a later time, or make that available to council to dive in a little deeper if they wish. In 2024, some of the successes that we had, we were able to receive or be a part of a couple of grants. The first grant was from the Ministry of Natural Resources, Legacy Oil and Gas Wells Collaborative Grant. Now, before Ms. Campbell gets worried that she signed off on something that we didn't go through or we didn't bring it to council, this was actually at the Oxford County level. It was a grant that was submitted through them in collaboration with 9 other municipalities, in which each of the 9 municipalities, we were successful in being able to purchase a decontamination trailer as part of our emergency management protocols. The county is finalizing that. We, as a member of the CEMC for that, will be putting the trailers together and it'll be available to the county at that time. One of the benefits of this is it does allow us to also call in from the other 8 municipalities if we have need of more units. We're kind of an MOU with respect to those. As well, towards the end of last year, we were successful in receiving $16,460 from the inaugural fire protection grant. This is the first kick of a 3-year program that the Ministry of the Solicitor General has put forward. The fire service is very excited to see this type of grant coming out. It's the first of its kind on a regular basis. And we're, again, very excited to see what the next round comes through. From this year's grant, what we had put forward was the purchase of 4 sets of bunker gear. This allows us to bring us up to every firefighter on the department will have 2 sets of bunker gear that we don't have to rent from. The city owns all sets. In general, last year, we were able to hire 8 probationary firefighters. 3 firefighters were as part of a retirement replacement. 4 were part of the staffing protocol that the council approved in last year's operating, and 1 was a replacement of a long-term leave firefighter. We were able to continue with our emergency preparedness and building resiliency expo at the downtown area here, or just by police headquarters. And we've continued our community partnership, pardon me, for reusable shopping bags. You'll see them out and about, bright red bags with lots of fire safety messages on and advertising from businesses within our community. Pardon me. We've also had an increase in our presence for fire safety messaging on buses and bus shelters throughout the community. Prevention and education continue with our hall tours and school visits. It's nice to see that those are starting to return in the post-COVID times where we kind of had to keep it all virtual. There is nothing compares to hands-on connection through it. We participated in the Oxford County High School Career Expo Day, and we continue to offer fire extinguisher training events to either local groups or businesses throughout our community. There were 355 fire safety inspections completed. Legislatively, we completed a legislative requirement, we completed all of our vulnerable occupancy inspection and fire drills within, and 4 fire investigations were performed where our investigator was requested. There is a threshold hit where an on-call investigator will be called in. If it's a smaller fire, our on-scene crew can perform that investigation. We did not have the threshold of the need for the OFM, the Office of the Fire Marshal, to be present for any of the investigations this year or in 2024. Our incident responses, you can see our totals that we have up there, kind of break them down, leave it on the presentation rather than going line by line. Our 2023 totals are in brackets afterwards. You look from 2024 to 2023, we are relatively steady with respect to the overall calls. There are some ups and downs and movement through as you go through and you look at it. Most noticeably, our rescue responses, and we've got a bit of a jump there, 309 to 282. That primarily leads with our motor vehicle collision setups that we have. So when we move into 2025 with the movement that we've got in our budget, I know we'll be discussing the line by line. I do like to kind of highlight some of the areas where we see some increases or decreases. So when we look at our expenditures, the first page that we have here, this is all of our contractual obligations underneath wages, benefits, and others. And when we compare between the two, one thing I do want to draw note, and it was mentioned in HR's presentation earlier, that the collective agreement for the Woodstock Professional Firefighters Association expired at the end of 2024. So we are operating off of the salary levels of last year's collective agreement. We won't know what the increases or what the changes may be to that until the collective agreement is settled. That will have an impact on the line at this point. When we move into the continuation of our expenditures, the collection of the previous slide is at the top there. Supplies, repairs, and maintenance. This is the day-to-day operation of the fire service, of our fire hall that we have direct control over, non-contractual setups, where we go through building maintenance, supplies, all that type of thing. We're seeing about a 5%, close to 6% increase there, with about $45,000. With our dispatch costs, emergency preparedness costs, and reserved costs that we have, the increase of $65,000 there is directly related to an increase in our dispatching costs. We have not had an increase or requested an increase to either of our reserve contributions to either the radios or apparatus, and there's been no change to emergency preparedness. Again, this goes directly to an increase in dispatching costs. Overall, when we look at it, we have a difference on our budget of $307,940, or 2.68%. And when we compare that to the total levy that the tax levy has, we are finally under 15%, 14.8%. Now, again, as much as I like that that number is under 15%, I do remind that that is not with 2025 wages, as we have, that will be adjusted with the collective agreement. When we go through the individual items, some of the areas that not a significant amount, depends on how we look at it, cost of what I kind of look at as the cost of doing the business for us, the increases that we associate there. Our billings, repairs, and maintenance, we have an increase of $7,000 there by monitoring our year-to-year coverage. Caretaking costs up $1,000. Subscriptions were just up $500. Our consumables, the consumables and caretaking, we do separate those two. The caretaking are for looking after the facilities and what goes on there. Consumables are products that we utilize in the procurement or giving out of the fire protection. So things like foam and such that go into the tanks for use at scenes and things like there. Fuel and oil, again, a cost increase of $2,000, cost going up of gas and diesel. Water, an increase of $500 by monitoring. Purchase services, plus $10,000. This, we are hoping, I would like to see by next year that we level out. We don't see this. We had moved to a new record management system last year, and the intent was, when we brought forward at that point, that once we had that implemented throughout the year, the goal was that we were going to be able to discontinue a couple of other subscription services that we utilize or pay for through this account. There was a delay in the implementation and the ability to convert and get that program, the new RMS system running, which then necessitated that one or two of the programs that we were hoping to discontinue in 2024, we had to renew the subscription. They only allow you to renew for a full year. We couldn't do a partial. So that contributes a good amount to the additions there. As I said, we anticipate those subscriptions will end in 2025 and not need to be renewed in 2026. Bunker gear cleaning, I know this one generally continues to draw questions because we purchased extractors and dryers. Why does the cost of the cleaning go up? We have more firefighters. We have more bunker gear that needs to go out on a regular basis for the cleaning. It is still the 2 times annually that it has to go out every 6 months for both sets of bunker gear that go through. We are seeing an increase just based on the sheer number of sets that have to go out. We do have a contract with the service provider to ensure that our pricing remains static for the 3 years that we have that agreement in place. Workplace safety and training, an increase of $1,000 there. Personal protective equipment, an increase of $12,460. Again, this is an increase of monitoring the replacement of our fire bunker gear. I know it kind of seemed we had a grant where we received an amount to buy 4 sets of bunker gear at $16,000. That's 4 sets of gear. This is an additional 3 sets. Again, as we go through a lifespan of the bunker gear has 10 years, more firefighters, we do have to replace more gear on an annual basis. Previously, I was looking at funding 10 sets of gear a year. Now we're having to look at 12 to 13 sets to maintain the 2 sets of bunker gear every 10 years or within the 10-year lifespan. Emergency preparedness, $5,000 increase there. We are looking at expanding the program that we have. There is no additions to base budget related to emergency preparedness here. There is no additions to base budget for fire at all this year. But we are looking at expanding the program a little bit and trying to increase and finish off with our business continuity planning and some additional. We have a course, an IMS 200 course that is planned to be run for all members of our emergency management operations center team. And dispatch costs, as I mentioned, that's the increase there is the fee that we pay to Woodstock Police Service to provide our dispatch costs. Reductions that we have, it's always nice to see some through there. Radio system maintenance and repair -7,000 and uniforms -4,300. As much as I'd like to take credit for those, unfortunately, I can't. The increases in the radio was part of a one-time expense that was last year to replace our UPS and batteries that were at the main infrastructure that we have for the city. So that cost came out. We do have another one-time cost kind of tied up into the radio system and maintenance for 2025. But again, the overall cost is less than what was required in 2024. Uniforms, the reduction there was offset because we had the additional firefighters that were part of the growth initiative and part of the staffing agreement that the council had approved last year. So we were able to pull some of the funds from there from the development charges. We are not having any growth related staffing changes this year, so no development charge movement on money. Now, before we get into the line by line, and I know it will be one of the questions that are there, I do want to dive into the 2024, is our overtime costs. I'm be very surprised if I wasn't asked about this. When we came through and we were making the adjustments with our staffing, which again, we were very grateful we were able to move up to our minimum staffing of 10, as we have 14 firefighters per shift at this time. We have been monitoring our overtime costs. We wound up being $150,000 over what our base budget request was for 2024. As shocking as that was, as we were watching it grow throughout the year, when we dive into the numbers, unfortunately, some of the aspects that we go through are beyond the control that we have with respect to it. When I look at the total cost that we have there as it lays out, this relates to 3,583 hours of paid overtime within that account. 409 of those 35, almost 3,600 hours are directly related to an actual working event, whether it's officers' meetings, health and safety meetings, an incident callback system, or we're doing on-shift training or off-shift training. The biggest thing that we found, 1,979 and a half hours, so almost 1,980 hours, 55% of the total hours of overtime are directly related to an officer or a firefighter long-term absence. I define a long-term absence as shown there, 3+ consecutive tours of duty of them being off. So we do have we don't have a short-term, long-term, we do have a sick bank that people are draw from. If they're off for a shift or two, it comes out of their sick bank to cover for the time. When we have individuals who are either off on WSIB, parental leave, or non-OC injuries, having surgeries and such like that, that we wind up, in some cases, we have members who have not been here all last year due to a WSIB claim. We have to look at where they are. If they're an officer, we do have to maintain minimum staffing of the officers on the shifts, and that's where we incur the overtime. So I would like to be able to say that we can start reducing these hours, but I cannot look into the future and see who's going to be off or what the issues are going to be there. And we are just trying to address it as we go. We have made some modifications in trying to, increase our forecast of what this area would be for 2025. But again, I don't have a crystal ball to be able to see what the direct impact is there. What I did want to provide to council that when we're looking at it, I cannot, as I said, When it's a long-term absence, it's kind of out of my control there for 55% of it. If we were able to remove that, I'd be well under budget. So with that, that's the end of my presentation, and I'll turn it over for questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the presentation before we get into the details? Yes, I do have one, and I think I know the answer anyways, the decontamination trailers.
Yes.
I know we did look at this at, county council, but I believe my memory is saying that it's one trailer and it's gonna be parked here at the main station on Parkinson, is that correct? Is my
Your-
memory correct on that?
Your worship, through to the question, that is correct. As part of the discussions that we had with the county CEMCs, as the only full-time department within the county, and it will be serving the county, it will be badged as an Oxford County decontamination trailer. We have the facility and the staff to be able to keep it at our location and be able to provide it to get to where it needs to go within the county for delivery if it's called in. So it will be housed at the Woodstock Fire Department, our headquarters on Parkinson Road. But again, it'll be available to any of the members within the county of Oxford, so.
That leads into my next question, which you just touched on then. In that case, are we responsible for it, and do we go and take it to the other locations if there's a call somewhere else?
So if there, your worship, through the question, if there's a request, that's part of what we're working through on the MOU for how we'll provide that service through there. The benefit, what we'll be first pass at is if it's an emergency event, it would probably be called upon underneath of the mutual aid sort of setup there, and we would be requested to bring it out. If it's part of a training initiative or, you know, an emergency preparedness day or an annual exercise, then it would be up to the requesting township or municipality to come and get it. But we would, for an emergency, we would set up, that's where we're leaning, is that we would have the ability to be able to provide it and transport it within the county of Oxford.
Again, the only fear there is with, overtime hours and everything else, if we're taking away one or two of our firefighters to go and understand under a mutual aid, but training exercises, things like that, I would hope they would come pick it up, and we're not using our staff for that.
Your worship, that is the intent.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else before we get into the pages? So we'll find this on pages 51. We'll do both 51 and 52, since a lot of this was highlighted in the presentation. Any questions on account numbers on pages 51 and 52 for the fire department? Seeing none? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Council.
Next up, Ms. Campbell, Administrative Services. Welcome. So this is on pages 1 to 13 for those following along at home.
Good evening, your worship and members of council. I'll be covering a number of pages at the front part of the budget tonight. This slide you recall from this slide you will recall from Thursday night. I won't just briefly, it breaks out the composition of the revenues of the city of Woodstock. Very similar to last year, the only difference being the flip from between taxation and industrial land sale revenues. With respect to the revenues in the front part of the section, page 1, includes a variety of revenues, a lot of them related to taxation. There's the tax levy as well as several tax items such as additional taxes, payment in lieu of taxes, and the penalty charges. And in addition, it includes some grants, investment income, and various transfers from the reserve and reserve funds. We always struggle a little bit with the additional tax budget number, although we did make budget in 2024. We receive sup and omit rolls 8 times a year from MPAC, and that's what they begin in April, going through to November, and that's what makes up our additional tax number. We do try to be a little conservative with this budget to make sure that we do meet it, based loosely on a 5-year average, and actually roughly approximates what MPAC has provided as our preliminary new growth revenues for 2025. The tax penalty and interest number is increasing, and we did increase our budget at the $100,000 in 25 to more closely reflect our 24 actual. I'd like to caution council, though, that it's not a revenue source that we like to rely on, as we would prefer that our tax arrears exhibit a decreasing trend rather than an increasing trend. And our outstanding taxes fluctuate with the economy, so it's not typically what we would call a sustainable revenue source. We always provide council some information on the slot machine money and how we've allocated it each year. It'll be based on the 2024 revenue we received, which I'd like to note was the highest amount that we've received since the inception of the program in 2002. We did use our regular allocation process in 2024, so there's 30% that's going directly to the levy to mitigate taxes for taxpayers. 15% goes to the community grants program, which includes the $35,000 to the fare subsidy for recreation. $30,000 is allocated to the transit subsidy program, and $150,000 is going to the community and social well-being reserve. The balance of $768,000 is being contributed to the reserve for capital projects. There's also a variety of expenditures in the first pages 2 to 4 that are not directly attributable to specific departments, so they're all consolidated in the treasury area. Most of them are comparable to last year. The one that we did reduce is the 2025 budget for the tax adjustments. It's down $250,000, and that's reflective of the decreased adjustment activity that we've been experiencing in the recent years as a result of the postponement of the province-wide reassessment. We do use the budget to finance various tax adjustments, but with minimal changes occurring to the assessment base over the last few years. The backlog of appeals has actually mostly been eliminated, and there's been fewer adjustments. Council will also recall that in 23, we eliminated the vacancy rebate program, so 2025 is the first year that we won't be showing any vacant rebate adjustments in this account. At the end of the year, any dollars that are left in the adjustment account are actually contributed into our tax adjustment reserve, and that's just to accumulate some funds to have financing available in the event that we have larger appeals in future years. We will keep an eye on this account and ensure that we have sufficient funds available once we do hear about a reassessment. Also included in this section of the budget are the boundary adjustment payments. We're paying 4 different area municipalities now: Norwich, East Sora, Tavistock, Blandford, Blenheim, and Southwest Oxford. And they all have at least one portion of their compensation that's in perpetuity. The payments are actually up to about just over 1.6% of the total expenditures in the budget. The SWOX payment did increase in 2024 in anticipation of the registration of a subdivision, and that did not occur. And the compensation agreement with SWOX is such that there's a flat rate per residential dwelling built. So in order to not raise taxes for the same expenditure twice, what we did is we carried over the amount that we did not pay in 2024 into 25, and you'll see that there's a one-time revenue offset in account 0200-69332 that offsets the increased expenditure we're anticipating spending in 2025. The charitable rebates are similar to last year, so we've talked about those before. There's not much change. And similarly, the community improvement grants and loans, that's still a popular program. There's several components that make it up, and we fund it entirely from the Downtown Development Reserve Fund. economic development and the downtown officer, they start those programs, but administrative services administers them once everything is in place and the funds flow. With respect to the contributions that we're making to the reserve and the reserve funds in 2025, they're pretty consistent with prior years. We've continued to have a pause on the sick leave severance reserve, which is a reserve that funds sick leave payouts when there are fire retirements. At the moment, we have enough to fund what we anticipate in the next 6 years. So we'll keep an eye on that account as well as retirements within the fire department occur. We have only maintained the contribution levels for both the municipal building reserve and the parks and open space reserve, despite the fact that both are showing shortfalls as early as 26 in the capital budget reserve projections. And finally, the salary, there is a contribution to the salary reserve included in the 2025 budget, and that is our practice in years when we have expired collective agreements. In 2023, we allocated the surplus of $3.6 million to the reserve for capital projects, and it was included in the final 2024 contribution, which is why that number looks much larger than the 25 contribution. Right now, the 25 estimate includes only our standard contribution of the index base plus some funding from the OMPF grant as well as the OLG revenues. It's typically what we call capital out of revenue when we refer to it at the capital budget time, and it's close to what we had in the capital budget, but it's never quite the same based on now we have actual numbers versus December when we have estimates. We will be presenting a year-end list of reserve and reserve funds to council in the spring. With respect to debt, Mr. Curry will be speaking to more general concepts about debt a little bit later tonight, but I just had a few things I wanted to draw to your attention. We do, where possible, include some revenue from the development charges reserve funds in order to finance the growth-related portion of debentures. In 24, we did not collect enough police development charges to finance that debenture payment for the police headquarters expansion that happened a few years back. So we did not actually make the contribution in 24. We are anticipating that we should be back on track in 2025. And we have one debenture that we do finance out of the Industrial Land Reserve Fund. And then the only other item in the debt section there that's unusual this year is a one-time reserve transfer to offset the initial payments related to the TriStar building debt. That one we budgeted for one payment in 2024, but just based on the timing of the debenture issue, there was no payment made. And again, in order not to raise the same dollars twice from the tax base, we did a carryover on that amount. And again, we expect that will only be a one-time offsetting revenue. And we did issue in 2024 at the end of the year $3.69 million for a variety of road projects, the complex splash pad and the TriStar building. The grant program is typically funded 100% from the slot machine reserve fund, with the exception of a portion of the Southgate Center grant. And the net expenditure at the end of this budget relates to that grant. We've allocated $223,630 for community and other grants within this department, while the $35,000 for the rec and culture portion of the fair program shows up in the recreation department. We will continue to see the Oxford County Naval Vet property be returned as taxable, so that grant will carry on through this department. And with that, I will pass it over to Mr. Sneeve, who's going to do the administrative services portion of the budget.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. What, sorry? You're gonna come back? You missed the section. Okay.
Apparently I wasn't finished. I'm back, like a bad penny. So the My final section is Department 205, the city buildings and properties. This reflects sort of all the properties that we can't attach to any specific department. The Market Center West End is now, their budget is reflective of the fact that it's occupied by city staff in the West End, and the estimates include a full year of operations. We did move the walkway property on Dundas Street this year over to this section. It's been in the parking department for a number of years, but didn't really make sense to still be there, so we switched it over into this section. And then miscellaneous land sales, again, that's an area where it can fluctuate very widely from one year to the next, so we've included it in this budget as well. And this is the department where we would anticipate we may include that facilities manager in the event the council approves that addition. And with that, I'm done. Sorry.
Okay. So good evening and your worship and members of council. For the Administrative Services Department, staffing highlights for 2024. So last year we added a second counting coordinator, which split the previous role into two positions to address workload and deadline issues. Additionally, we converted our tax clerk position from part-time to full-time. This allows us to distribute the taxation workload, which enables us to remain on top of duties that often required overtime work by senior staff to complete. And also, lastly, our summer student role we've had for a few years continues to be an important piece, as the position has been very helpful during the summer months. With the growing workload our accounts payable department continues to experience, and we are currently recruiting for this role in 2025 as well. Overall, the additional staff in 24 was also made possible due to the expansion of our workspace. The relocation of staff from City Hall over to Market Street with help from other departments has allowed us to expand our own workspace in City Hall, which we were always out of for a number of years. This also allowed us to realign some of our workload of staff to make us more efficient. The additional space also gives us room to grow in the coming years while we wait for much larger City Hall expansion project to take place. This slide, the administrative services, kind of the page by numbers. So we like to include each year, generally show some of the volume the department handles. Generally, from this year to last, some of the numbers they appear on the slide as not too much of a change in comparison. I'll highlight one though, purchasing card users. Overall users for the city where it's down by 1, but if we look at the actual volume of transactions being processed in 2024 alone for our Visa transactions, we processed 7,558 transactions compared to 6,900 in 2023. So just that alone works out to be just under a 10% increase just in Visa volume alone. We're seeing increases as well as just in general payments by EFT or check. We've transitioned mostly to EFT over the years to be, I think, north of 80% or more that we pay by direct deposit over a check. Again, as the city grows, the volume we process will always continue to increase. For accounts receivable, again, it's kind of consistent from last year to this year, but generally, one thing to note is the AR invoices we issue out of our department directly doesn't come from our recreation software. So invoicing for things like ice time, pool usage, camps, and other facility rentals is handled through our recreation software directly and processed by the department themselves to directly better manage the customers they deal with on a regular basis. 2024 achievements. We had a noticeable uptake in our e-send requests, mainly due to the postal strike near the end of 2024. To at this point, by the end of the year, we are now processing roughly 10% of our tax notices by email. For those that don't know what the e-send program is, it's our electronic notification option taxpayers can sign up for to eliminate the need to wait for tax bills by regular mail. It's recommended to take advantage of this to not only avoid delays from future postal strikes, but to simply have your tax bill emailed within minutes of it being processed from our system. Our FMW budgeting software was expanded in 2024 by distributing operating results to staff, which allowed them to better manage spending overall by the ability to drill down to transaction level detail on each of their accounts. And this has reduced the number of requests from staff with the ability to look it up themselves at their own convenience. At the end of 2024, we were able to implement the automated cash receipting through our engineering department. This has reduced delay of revenues being reported in the system and eliminates simplification of work by staff. We're continuing to streamline this in 2025 to make it more efficient. And lastly, in 2024, I'll just note too that with the recreation software rollout of Perfect Mind in early 2024, the transition out of Legend, the department also assisted in rolling out that piece of software and supporting it. For 2025, the goals for our department, looking ahead, we'll aim to expand FMW software further by using it for the revenue fund budget process for 2026, and we are currently running it in parallel for 25. We also be looking to update our areas of the website to provide public with more information and aim to utilize our virtual city hall portal, which provides users with electronic access to their accounts and provide alternate methods of online payment if they so choose. Also in 25, and as previously mentioned by our city engineer, next version of asset management plan is due July 1st. This is the final step of the phase-in of the regulation for the reporting. This will expand on last year's report, which detailed current levels of service and will now provide proposed levels of service for each of the areas. And those levels of service proposed will be based on achievable goals over the next 10 years. And lastly, in 2025, we're beginning to investigate replacement software options for our finance and HR systems. At the end of September 2024, it was announced our financial software will be end of life at the end of 29. The replacement of this software will be a very large undertaking. But it will give us the opportunity to streamline and gain efficiencies by potentially having a unified solution, reducing the amount of various softwares we currently utilized to perform our tasks as it stands now. And with that, this will lead into our addition to budget ask for 2025. And I'll have Dan come up to speak to that further.
So our addition to the budget this year is for a ERP project manager with a contract to begin late in 2025, continuing to the end of 27. As Mr. Sneed mentioned, in September 2024, Microsoft announced the end of life for Dynamics GP, which is the software we've been using for the last 25 years for our finance and taxation. They'll continue to do product enhancements and updates, provide technical support up until 29 with security updates available till 2031. So it's a project that needs to get going. We'd like to take the opportunity to transition the various software products that we're using right now for a variety of solutions to try to produce some type of unified platform so that everybody is on a similar basis and provide integration and efficiencies. We have a lot of duplication right now because we have a lot of different pieces of software that we massage to work together, but it would be nice to get one uniform platform. We've used, like I said, we've been using various iterations of Dynamics GP for 25 years. So there's been many changes related to the business of the city of Woodstock, but there's been new financial reporting requirements such as the introduction of capital assets and amortization. Our transactional volumes have increased. We've got all kinds of automation now with banking that we didn't have 25 years ago. And there's all sorts of online opportunities with recreation software, building permits, just a myriad of different solutions. So we would like to get somebody that can actually focus on this work and produce a good solution for everybody, have an opportunity to speak to all the different city staff, city departments, determine who needs what the importance of different things are. So it makes sense that it can't be a corner of the desk kind of job. It's not a feasible solution. It needs to be done properly and it needs a dedicated position. So what we're looking for this year is a full-time contract staff to act as our project manager and lead the overall project. With the transition that's going to go on in our department shortly, we're looking at something towards the end of the year. And we suggested financing this just from the salary reserve for about, I think $30,000 is what we put included in the budget. And with that in mind, if it doesn't happen, then we're not raising money for nothing. But if it does give us an opportunity to get started with it. Our Director of Information Technology is also very interested in assisting with this process. So ideally, the goal would be to get going at the end of 25. The only thing that's included in the budget right now is $3,000 for IT support, which would be a computer and various equipment to go along with that. With that, thank you for your time, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Campbell or Mr. Seneve on the presentation before we get into the page by page? Seeing none, we'll get into the pages. So we'll start with page 1. Again, those following at home, this is 1 to 13. I'll open it up to pages 2 and 3 now. Seeing no questions on pages 1, 2, and 3, I will move along to pages 4 and 5. Seeing none. Moving along to pages 6. And then we'll finish off that section at page 6. So no questions from pages 1 to 6 at this point. We'll move along. Page 7. Seeing no questions yet tonight anyways, we'll move along to pages 8 and 9. Seeing no questions. Finishing it off at page 10. So pages 7, 8, 9, and 10. Anything on that section? Seeing none. Moving along to page 11. I will include the rest, page 11, 12, or 13. Any questions for administrative services?
All right.
Seeing none.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, I'd like to welcome Ms. Collins for Marketing and Communications. And those following along at home, this is pages 96 and 97 in the booklet. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. Before we get started, I just wanted to highlight a couple of the actions that we've taken as we work towards providing proactive, timely, and transparent communication with the public. So in 2024, we launched and introduced a new corporate policy for media relations that outlines the sort of expectations and formalizes the details around how staff interact with the media. As part of that process, we also identified key spokespeople based on the roles that they play in the organization and provided training to almost 40 so far, I think, of the staff that we identified as spokespeople. So we've delivered that training since December. We've also been working through improvements to the corporate website. And that was coming out of the recommendation, or sorry, the audits that we did in 2023. And I'll get into some of that in the rest of my presentation. So when we look ahead to 2025, we'll continue to support staff sharing information on core services that we deliver to the public, as well as special projects like the changes to the waste collection program that'll obviously require extensive communication to help people understand what those changes are and how they are impacted, navigating construction, especially around the downtown streetscape, as well as anticipating and planning for the city's 125th anniversary celebrations in 2026. We'll also play a key role in the SharePoint implementation that we're working on with IT, and I've been working with them over the last couple of months to develop and launch the solution that will help improve internal information sharing collaboration between staff and different departments. So municipal websites are one of the key tools that we use to share information with the public. Because of the number of services municipalities offer, municipal websites can be quite overwhelming for members of the public. As we identified here, we've got more than 900 pages on our website, which is a lot of content to navigate and sift through if you're looking for a specific project or information. And so we went through those 900 pages in 2023. We identified ways that we could improve content, remove redundancies, or just consolidate information to make it easier to find and navigate. And so we've been working through that process in 2024. We had a summer student who went through all of those recommendations and implemented a lot of the changes already that we can do. Just with improving content, consolidating it, making it more user-friendly, written in a user, with the user in mind in terms of how the content is written. We also identified a need to improve our governance processes and identified some training requirements. And so again, we ran about 50 staff through content writers on how to provide content that is accessible and user-focused. As we have a decentralized model so that staff across the corporation who are the subject matter experts can provide the content on our website. So we thought it'd be interesting to share some stats about our website. As we said, it continues to be one of the primary points of access for information about programs and services that the city offers. So we have nearly 500 users to our website, which is essentially visits to our website in 2024, slightly up from the year before. Most of our visitors are accessing it directly through our URL, cityofwoodstock.ca, or through a Google search. We also are able to track back that the next sort of wave of people coming to our website come from our social media, specifically Facebook. So that means they found something of interest that we've been talking about on Facebook and link through to our website so we can follow that traffic pattern there. In terms of the peak days on our website, program registration days, not surprising, special events, also not surprising. As an example, we have about 800 to 1,700 users per day to our website. That number grows to 6,000 to 8,000 on those days. So significant jump on those days. In terms of trends, Thursdays tend to be our busiest day. Not surprising, we've got council meetings on Thursdays. And so often people will be coming to link to the live stream or to find the website or the council agendas. I also wanted to highlight a couple of noticeable changes in our budget lines. So you'll notice that there was a significant change from our technology account where we moved costs from technology to website maintenance and development line. So that is just to reflect what those true costs are. So we have a number of different technology solutions that we use to help us do what we do. Some of those are related specifically to the website, and we just made sure that we move those to the right accounts, so that information is easier to track and find that spending is allocated. So while there was an incremental increase to account for rising prices and increase of number of users of some of those software platforms, it is only about a $3,000 increase over all of those different software solutions, which is not necessarily what the differential number on one of those account lines show. So we are requesting one addition to base budget this year. As we flagged for you last year, we would be coming forward with a request to update the website platform. Our website provider had launched a new platform and so a content admin system, and so we knew that they would be at some point end of lifing the existing solution, and so we've now been given that date of June 2026. The new platform will have additional functionality that can help us improve the way that we share information with the public, and it also allows us to address some of the accessibility issues that are present in our current platform. So the intent is to migrate our existing website as well as our economic development microsite to that new platform, as well as launch a new microsite for Woodstock Museum and Woodstock Art Gallery that'll allow us to provide that more customized, focused user experience for those departments' specific needs and audiences. And because this work is expected to take about 6 months to migrate all that content over and get everything set up, we're recommending that it moves forward in 2025 so that we can avoid any disruption when support is terminated for the current solution. And because we want to make sure that we're able to continue delivering our core service of providing communications and marketing support to the staff across the organization, we are requesting approval of a temporary staff resource to help manage that workload and to help take some of that burden off of staff in all the different departments to migrate that content over. As well, that person would support staff from all the different departments in launching that SharePoint internal solution as well, which again is going to be able to help us provide more efficient service internally and have access to, up-to-date, accurate information in a more user-focused way. So again, these improvements and requests that we're coming forward do connect to our strategic plan, partly through action item 2.8 of implementing and maintaining an e-service strategy, item 4.3, market and promotional recreational services in Woodstock, as well as 6.1 about enhancing ongoing public engagement, leveraging city communication channels to enhance community identity and belonging. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Collins? Counselor Shanberg.
Yeah, from the mayor, it's, I guess my question is the revenue for what's on Woodstock magazine for advertising, where specifically does that fit in the budget? I think I saw the exact line.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, through the councillor's question. That is under 1101-65103-0000. So that $35,000 revenue is what we're budgeting for 2025, which is similar to what we budgeted in 2024. We fell just shy of that.
Yeah, did you lose any clients whatsoever during the postal strike?
Through the Your Worship, through the councillor. I don't believe so. We were able to actually, just under the wire, get in and have a decision made. We did have numerous discussions as to whether or not we would actually be able to deliver the publication. And as I said, they reached an agreement just under the wire, and we were able to maintain that distribution.
Any other questions before we get into pages 96 and 97? So with that, I'll open it up. Page 96 and 97 in your book. Any questions on any of those account numbers? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
And last for this evening is Mr. Creary, our CIO. And again, for those following at home, these are going to be on pages 95 and 53, the CAO and the planning. Mr. Creary, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, we're good. Okay. Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Here to talk about the planning and CAO budget. First, two single-page budgets, page 53. The planning budget. In 2024, the planning budget actually generates revenue in net. In 2024, budget was generating revenue of 5,050. We surpassed that, and we're projecting a revenue of $17,000 in 2025. Of course, the revenue is derived from zone change application fees. Council approved an increase in that zone change application fee in 2024. So that increase is now $2,500 for a planning application for a zone change. All of the expenditures that are included on this in this budget largely relate to expenses that are incurred by the Oxford County Planning Department for processing the planning applications on behalf of the city. With one exception, the first one, the planning services, legal fees and services. I've included a budget of $10,000 this year, which is up $5,000 from last year. Now, this would be for professional services to defend a decision of City Council at the Ontario Land Tribunal. I've increased it to $10,000. The $10,000 would represent a fairly minor one-day hearing cost that would include professional representation by both legal and professional planner. If there is a tribunal hearing that exceeds one day, this budget will be insufficient. This is a difficult one to predict. It's one you really don't want to budget a high figure for and then not have it be needed. So it is a difficult one. With Your Worship, with there any questions on this page, I will.
We can ask that. Any questions on page 53 then? Seeing none, then we'll go to your CAO budget on page 95.
So page 95. Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So the CAO budget, the biggest driver here is the introduction of the shared costs of the deputy CAO city clerk. So that is representing the primary increase in this budget line, where we're splitting costs between the city clerk's department and the CAO budget, recognizing the additional resource that we have with Ms. Humphreys now joining this department. The only other note I would make is the legal fees can tend to be variable depending on the amount of legal activity that occurs throughout the year. And Your Worship, if there are any further questions on this, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions of council? And this is on page 95. Councillor Martin.
Can you just remind me, what was the consultant services for just shy of $10,000 in 2024?
Oops. Sorry, can we have the presentation back? Thank you. Your Worship, through to Councillor Martin, the consultant services relates to the housing needs assessment that's required by the federal government to continue our eligibility for both, I call it federal gas tax, I'm old school, it's now Canada, yeah, it got a new name. But there's also a federal transit funding program that will start flowing money in 26 or 27 related to capital. But a requirement of both of those is the completion of this housing needs assessment. Now, this is a fairly hefty survey that I've required the use of consultant resources. Fortunately, the county's in the middle of a comprehensive review and a housing needs study. So this is consultant work to assist us in and completing this survey.
So just to follow up, then that was a one-time, or it might come up every few years. It's not every year.
Your worship, through to Councillor Martin, yes, it is my understanding it is a one-time. It is not something that I expect to see again. Council did approve the use of, through a report to council in the latter part of 2024, financing out of, I believe, the contingency reserve, I believe up to $20,000, which just isn't showing yet in the budget, but council had approved a requisition of funds to support this work.
Any other questions on page 95? Seeing none?
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. I just got a few more slides. So council will recall seeing this at their last meeting last Thursday, the additions to base budget. This represents the financial sustainability recommendations for additions to base budget. Just want to highlight those first three, the top three: the road reconstruction reserve request for 400,000, a request for consideration of one-time road reconstruction funding of up to $861,000. And of course, the Cowan Park Sportsplex turf replacement of up to $750,000. This would be over 2 years. The anticipated cost of that turf replacement is $1.5 million, and it's expected to be needed in 2026. All of these funds relate to work that's classified as recurring projects because it would be a repair or a replacement of an existing capital asset. In this case, either roads or the turf at Cowan Park Sportsplex. They are included here as approval of these will replace the use of debt financing for this work. Now, council will recall seeing the asset management plan for all assets in 2024. It was approved in mid-year last year. That report, in summary, this table was included in that report. So in summary, 9.4 million was identified through that study as a financing gap annually to maintain our current complement of existing capital assets. And it's broken down transportation, stormwater, corporate facilities, recreation, culture, and corporate fleet. Now, an asset management plan is always going to be a work in progress. It's always these numbers will always be changing as the quality of the data that's input into the plan changes. And in 2025, you will see another update to this plan, adding another dimension to the asset management plan, that being levels of service. So undoubtedly, these numbers will move. But they are not going to move significantly from the magnitudes that you're seeing here. So I just want to draw your attention to the three biggies. Transportation, estimated financing, annual financing gap of 5.1 million, corporate facilities, 1.587, and rec and culture, 1.9 million. So if we just look at those two, corporate facilities and recreation and culture, those two total approximately $3.5 million. And in our capital budget, we have the Cowan Park Sports turf replacement, of course, 1.57 million planned in 2026. We also have a very large community complex roof replacement project of 2.78 million between 2026 and 2028. Both of these projects financed through the use of debt for lack of an alternative financing scheme. Now, this is admittedly over 3 years, but the total 4.3 million over 4 years is approximately 1.4 million, which really justifies the previous slide indicating that we have a financing gap of about 3.5 million a year in our facilities with just these two projects. So I just want to talk a little bit about our debt position, as Ms. Campbell indicated. At a very high level, our current outstanding debt obligation of principal only as of the end of 2024 is about $15 million. The 2025 budget includes 2.45 million for principal and interest gross repayment. Now, I use the word gross because development charge can be used to pay for the growth elements of some of these projects that that are included and that were financed through debt. If you net out the development charges, about 1.65 million of that 2.45 million is financed on the levy, with the balance being financed by development charges. Now, in 2025, we have approved capital budget debt financing of 4.3 million. Now, if you look at, as of the end of 2025, what is our debt position for what's been approved and what's been issued already? What's our debt obligation, principal only? That total would be about $26.5 million. Now, that would include things like Southgate Center debt, which has not been issued yet, 4.9 million, the Public Works Edition, 1.5 million, Phase 1 of the Downtown Streetscape Project, 2.7 million, of course, including in 2025 capital budget, the Phase 2 Downtown Streetscape Project of 2.9 million, and 1.261 million in roads reconstruction. Now, we have that 1.261 million in the request for council's consideration for raising those funds rather than issuing debt. So that 1.26 million could be subtracted from that debt position of 26.5, depending on which council does with this budget. So if we just look at that in a pie chart, this is how it would break down. Our debt position for each of these specific areas. Roads, including the downtown streetscape, would be about 11.2 million in debt. Recreation, including the Southgate project, about 6.8 million in debt. The industrial is the construction of Woodall Way. We financed that with debt, and it is soon to be expired. It's 355,000 remaining. Public Works, of course, is the Public Works Edition, as well as the residual financing of the waste depot. The police is the police expansion largely. Fire is the fire hall, Parkinson Road Fire Hall expansion project. Shared radio system is from an earlier improvement to the radio system. Engineering and general government are the final two. General government is land that's been acquired in the downtown beside City Hall. So this is where we would be sitting at the end of 2025 with everything continuing as is. Now, when we're looking at budgets, we're looking basically at 1 year. I just want council to think beyond the 1 year, because there's a lot more going on. As the city hits the 50,000 population now, our facilities are hitting the limits of their practical use, and you're starting to see the strain on the use of the facilities. And so looking forward, we have plans beginning to take shape with respect to a City Hall expansion. We have, council will receive a fire master plan that begins to discuss a third fire hall. We have the police chief who is exploring a police building expansion. The library, again, is looking at an expansion. And of course, we're out right now with the North Woodstock Community Complex consultation with the survey for a new recreation complex that ranges between 67 and 80 some million dollars. So none of these are approved. All of these are in various stages of development at this point. And all of these are growth-related projects. Now, these can, and much of this could be funded through development charges. But it's important to note that all of the projects of this magnitude would be financed with 20-year debt as a minimum. And the city of Woodstock does not have a 20-year land supply to provide development charge funding for a 20-year debt servicing at this point. At this point, our guess would be we would be a sub 10-year land supply. So anything that's not able to be funded on development charges resides on the levy. So we have a lot that's coming down the pipeline in the near future. We have a lot of difficult choices. And this is why when we're talking about recurring projects, maintaining our existing capital assets, we stress the importance of trying to fund those from own sources rather than move towards debt. We have a lot coming at us down the road in the midterm, and debt financing will undoubtedly be required for that. So I just want council to think a little bit further down the road. And with that, Your Worship, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that explanation. Anyone have any questions? Mr. Curry? Seeing none? All right, well, thank you. So this is, that's all the presentations for tonight. We will hear from the remaining departments at our special budget meeting scheduled for tomorrow evening, Wednesday, February 26th, at the same time, 5 p.m. I want to thank all staff that were here in attendance, being here and available for willingness to answer any questions. And with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Wismer Van Meer, second by Councillor Lauder. All those in favor? We are adjourned. We'll see everybody tomorrow night.